Hey guys, welcome to Heart and Soul Conversations. This evening, I am Corey J, aka Coach K, your happiness coach, and I help people find happiness after experiencing toxic relationships. Tonight is story time with Coach K, and I just wanted to come on tonight and just share a little bit more about my story. I know I said I was going to wait until next week, but I really just kind of feel like now is the time to share this information. Talking about the signs of narcissistic abuse, guys, because a lot of people, when you go through something like that, you don't realize the toll that it takes on your body. Hey Doc, how are you? Thank you for tuning in. You don't realize the toll that it takes on your body. You don't realize the things that you emotionally and physically go through when you're in it, because you don't really know that you're in it. You just know that you're really stressed out, or you don't feel good, or you're just extremely tired. So I want to go ahead and talk about a few of those things tonight, along with sharing a little bit of my story. So a lot of you have been following me for a few years. You know that a couple years ago, well, more than a couple years ago, I was in a very toxic and volatile relationship with somebody who was extremely narcissistically abusive and physically abusive. Like, seriously, it was really, really, really bad, but I didn't know it was bad until it got bad, like worse, you know? And I want to just really talk about the toll, like the things that narcissistic abuse does to your mental and to your psyche. Okay, so one of the first things that I started to notice was that I became a uber sensitive. Now, I was already a sensitive person, you know, cry at the drop of a hat, but going through something like this, I was really sensitive. And because I was being gaslighted by the other person, when somebody else would tell me something, I would do the same to them, or I would automatically just, snap on the other person because I'm being gaslighted by somebody else, if that makes sense. It's like I'm being controlled and manipulated by someone else. And so when someone else tells me something or say something that they see, hey, Coach Dion, how are you? Thank you for tuning in. Whenever they would tell me something that they would see, I'm snapping back immediately in defense and quickly offended, at the time. And long time ago, there was a point in my life where I was just always going through something, right? How many of you know you have that person, or you may have been that person where something was always happening? I was always that person that was always going through something, up one minute, down the next, all together one minute, not together the next. Hey, Valerie, thank you for tuning in. And so, people began to know me, or they began to, hey, Tim, thanks for tuning in. They began to associate me with always going through something, or always having some sort of drama in my life. And at the time, yeah, there was, because I was making poor decisions. Okay, I was making very poor decisions. I was making decisions that weren't healthy for me, that weren't healthy for my children, but I didn't know. I was young at the time. I didn't know. And then getting into relationships that were abusive, and on top of it, really, of course, yes, when you're being abused, you really are just out of it. You make the worst decisions ever. You think that everybody is against you except for the person who really is against you, So that was who I was at the time. And so many years of that, many years of just that roller coaster of stability, instability, good one minute, not good the next, needing to borrow money, rob Peter to pay Paul, just craziness all the time. And so now that things are different in my life, I think that sometimes some folks, they tend to not disassociate that with who I am now. They still think that I'm the same person that I was 10 years ago, and I'm far from that person now. I'm far from the person I was 6 months ago. You know what I mean? And let alone while I was going through this abusive situation years ago, I'm definitely not that person. But during that time, I was extremely sensitive to the words of other people. And I really felt like everybody else was against me because this other person had convinced me that everyone else was against me, except for him. He was my only support. Narcissistic people will really prey on the fact that you have no support. So if you have a family background where you are not close with your family members, you're not close with your siblings, you have, you're at odds with people in your family, they prey on that and they do what's called hoovering, because they know that you have no one else to support you. So they will convince you that everybody else is against you. They're the only ones who have your back, right? They will convince you that you need only them. They will talk to you in such a way, and they will convince you, really have you thinking that no one else is for you when everybody else sees what you can't. And so when someone else sees what that person is doing to your mental state of mind, because your behavior changes because they convince you now, right? So you begin to become the person that they want you to be. And so when people on the outside are like, hey, listen, are you okay? Because you're changing. They will have you thinking that people are jealous of you, or that people wish they had the life that you have. They just wish they had this kind of relationship. They're just jealous. Listen, and when you're in it, you're like, yeah, you know what? That's true, because they have all kind of problems and they're not happy and they just wish that they could be as happy as us, babe. You right. You are so right. And it's like, oh no, so wrong, because they're being manipulative. That's how they manipulate. They hoover. They really want you to be so mentally and emotionally codependent on them that they will absolutely have you believing that nobody else is there for you when the whole rest of the world is praying for you, because they see what you can't see. They see that you're in something that is so toxic that they really, really, really want you to get out of it. But when you're in it, you're not paying attention, and they isolate you from everybody who really cares about you so they can control you. And so one of the symptoms of being a part of a narcissistic relationship is you feel isolated, because you are. I've been there, okay? You are completely isolated. They will have you move to a whole other state, really, sometimes, just to get you away from what could potentially be a great support system, i.e. your friends and family. They will move you to a place or convince you that you need to, you know what, babe, let's move. Let's start over. It's just us. Let's take the kids, blah, 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 or you need to stay away from those people. They don't mean you any good. I don't like them anyway. And of course they're not going to like your friends. Of course they're not going to like your family. And they're going to convince you that everybody else is against you, because they want you to be codependent on them. And you develop codependent behaviors like always asking their permission to do something. When you're grown as hell, you don't need anybody else's permission to do anything. But they will have you thinking that you need to ask them to simply go to take a shower. Hey, babe, I'm going to take a shower now. You good? Instead of just hopping in the shower and doing or taking time for you. Hey, I'm going to go hang out with the girls tonight. And there's a difference between courtesy and respect and asking permission. Do you mind if I go out tonight? That's asking permission. If you're an adult, why do you need to ask your adult partner to go out instead of saying, hey, do we have any plans? Because I'm making plans to do A, B, C, and D. Right? But they will have you so codependent on their approval and upon their statement that they will have you asking for permission to do things. The freeze response is another symptom of narcissistic abuse. And the freeze response is like, have you ever, okay, so some of you who are watching, you've been in narcissistic relationships before, you're so afraid to say anything that you say nothing, and you just kind of stand there like a deer in headlights, right? And then they're looking at, what are you, stupid? You can't say anything? And you're just looking like, well, if I say something, there's going to be an argument, so why bother? Just listening, right? And that's called the freeze response. And that's not normal. That is not normal. And I know for me, I used to do that all the time, not just with the person who was dishing out the abuse, but with my friends and family as well. Seriously, because it was like I was so afraid to say anything and speak my truth to anybody out of fear of what they would say in return. Now it's like you poke the bear, don't get mad if the bear claws back. But back then, that freeze response was all I could do, because I was too afraid to say anything. I was too afraid to speak my mind, because narcissistic abuse has you second guessing your own cognitive thinking. They will have you thinking that everything you think or feel is not right. The other symptom is that being sensitive to everybody's words. I mean, you are so super sensitive. It's more than just, I said earlier about being sensitive, but you're super sensitive to everything anybody says. So to the point where you don't want to talk to anybody. Again, going with that freezing response, because you are so afraid to say anything. You're sensitive to everybody's words, and then everybody is against you in your mind. You've created in your mind because they've made you believe that everything is, everybody else is against you. And that's because of the gaslighting. You have trouble making decisions on your own. You second guess your own cognitive thinking, which was by design, right? So then you are afraid to decide to do anything on your own without consulting them first. And that's also different than asking permission. You know, it's like you feel like you have to either not get their permission, but you have to sit down and have a conversation with them. Hey, Marsha, thank you for tuning in. Have a conversation with them. Let me talk it over with my husband. Let me talk it over with my wife. You know, let me see what you think about it, because of that codependency that they create with you, having you feel like you can't do anything apart from them, or you do nothing because you feel like your own thoughts and your own desires are not good enough, or you're not worthy enough to do that very thing. And that is so far from the truth. You worthy. You deserve it, girl. You deserve it. Go on and do it. You know, but they will have you believing, and you start to feel that insecurity within because of the gaslighting. That gaslighting is something else. But the symptom of the narcissistic abuse, you will not be able to make decisions on your own without them. Or so you do nothing. If you don't want to talk to them and that freeze response comes in, you do absolutely nothing. So then it leads into a pattern of inconsistent behavior. You start something, you don't finish. You put it down for a while, then you pick it back up later on, then they make you feel bad for it, so then you put it back down again. Then you pick it back up later on, then you put it back down again. Or they convince you to do something that wasn't even on your radar to do, because that's what they really want to do. And so you pick up their thing that you're not even passionate about. I mean, I've done it. Done it. Started business with the person that I was with, and they wound up stealing the business and stealing all kind of money and all this, that, and the third, because I picked up their thing instead of sticking with my thing. But they made me feel, I began to feel, I won't say they made me, but I began to feel as if what I was doing wasn't good enough. So maybe I'll give what they want a try, even though I wasn't even interested in it. I did it for years, did it for a long time, had no interest. It was not my thing at all. And, even though there was money being made in it, I still wasn't passionate about it because it wasn't my thing. I picked up their thing. There are also physical changes, unexplained physical changes that you go through as a result of narcissistic abuse. Fatigue, extreme fatigue, upset stomach, constant nausea, always feeling like you're not feeling good, depression, insomnia, and a lot of, I know that I'm a night owl. I stay up late anyway. But when you just don't sleep at all, that's a part of it, because your mind is always racing, because you're thinking about you're thinking ahead of the next day. What are they going to say? How is tomorrow going to be? Let me get in the bed. Let me not get in the bed. I don't know. I don't want to touch. I want to roll over. I don't know if I touch them, what's going to happen in the bed. I mean, they're petty. There's a lot of things that happen that you're just like, really? I can't even roll over in my own bed. You know what I mean? I can't cook. I can't be in my own kitchen. I can't leave the shower curtain a certain way. I can't hang a towel a certain way without an argument. Because you have to walk on eggshells, you don't sleep because you're worried about the next day while you're laying down. And that's not the place you really want to be. That's not healthy. That is not healthy at all. But when you're in it, you don't see it. And then when you point, I did mention last night, when you point out things to them about how they are, what they do, things that they've done to offend you, of course, the gaslighting begins. They respond with extreme anger. okay? Extreme anger to the point where you are just looking in the mirror like, what just happened? What just happened? Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? And then the freeze response comes in again because you're just like, forget it. Let me just sit here and blink until they're done. And you're crying, but they want that response from you. But there are so many different things that our bodies go through, guys, when you are a part of a narcissistic relationship or when you're just in an abusive relationship, period. You know, you're wondering why you're always tired and not feeling well. Your health deteriorates, honestly, because you're in a toxic environment. And that toxicity from that other person, when you take it in and you're constantly hearing it, your spirit absorbs that. Your soul absorbs all of that negative energy and all those negative words and all the gaslighting. And let me tell you, narcissistic abuse is subtle in the beginning, very subtle. You don't really realize it's happening. It's like a joke or a crack or, you know, subtle sarcasm. And so you kind of laugh it off and brush it off like it's nothing. Oh, they were just joking or they were just playing, you know, but they really weren't. They were being really serious, but they covered it up as a joke just to get you to allow them to demean you, allow them to belittle you in public or behind closed doors. And a lot of times another symptom too is that you put on that front in public that everything is okay, but then you behind closed doors and you are dying on the inside, dying on the inside. You're crying in the shower. You won't let them see you cry, so you cry in private. You won't let them see that they, you know, got the best of you after a while, so you're doing it in private. But all the while, you're living a whole double life just like them. Because you have to keep up this front that you're happy when you're not, just so that people on the outside will continue to believe that you're living this good life that you're really not living. You want everybody to believe that you're happy because you've told everybody in the world about this relationship, about this person. You've gotten married and you had this huge wedding. And so now you have to convince the world that it is going perfectly fine. Or that, oh, just normal arguments here and there, but nothing too serious. When the truth of the matter is, it is toxic. It is not normal. The things you argue about or the way that he argues with you or she argues with you, the things that they say is not normal at all whatsoever, but you can't let anybody else know it because you're too embarrassed or you're too ashamed or you think nobody would understand or they've isolated you to begin with. So now you have no one to talk to because you've burned every bridge that you used to be able to walk across. Okay, I have done it. I have been there. And I almost ruined family relationships that were sincerely important to me and meant the world to me. I mean, thank God we were able to reconnect and reestablish, you know, those relationships. But while I was with that person, oh, they were the enemy. They were my enemy. They were against me. They were against my children. They didn't mean me any good. He was the only person that was around. I had no family near me at all whatsoever. None. And the ones who were around, who did come around after a while, stopped coming around or even coming to visit because they couldn't stand that person. And I became just like that person because I became the person that he wanted me to be. I became his mold. I became exactly who he molded me out to be because he needed to be able to have me a certain way so he can continue to do what he needed to do and get his constant supply. And all of these symptoms, guys, gives the narcissist constant supply. It is not a fun place to be in when you can't call your family for help. It is not a fun place to be in when you are dying on the inside and you're afraid to even call 911 for help because you're afraid of that argument it's going to cause when that person picks up, when they catch you calling 911. And I will never forget this night. I will never forget. I'm going to share this story. One night, I had come to my wits' end. Hey, Kadrian, thank you for tuning in. I had really come to my wits' end. And I had it this night. But I was out of my mind at this particular point. And I really was like pacing the floor. I'm like, I can't take it anymore. I'm saying this out loud. I can't take this anymore. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. And I'm pacing the floor. And he's pacing the floor with me. He's like, what is wrong with you? And I said, I can't take it anymore. And I said, you know what? Maybe I need to call 911 for me because I need help right now. Why did I do that? Because he pushed me down a flight of stairs and fought me. And to this day, I have like my collarbone sticks out right here because he wrestled me to the ground and had me like this, my face buried into the carpet because he thought I was calling the cops on him. I was calling 911 for me because I needed help. But that moment made me feel like I can't even call 911. Hey, Joseph, thank you for watching. I couldn't even call 911 for me. I'm like, we didn't even live together, guys. He was visiting in my home and pushed me down my stairs, which were wooden, by the way. There was no carpet. I'm surprised I didn't break a bone at that time. But they will have you, the fear of asking for help, the fear of saying something to other people. So you begin to really live that double life that they're living because they have to keep up the perception of the perception that they give people. They have to keep that up, And so you have to do the same because you don't want to ruin their image. And they'll make sure you don't ruin their image. And they will make sure that they get you down to a point that you know better not to tell the people the truth about who they really are, about the arguments, about the gaslighting, and everything will always be your fault. I said this last night. Everything will always be your fault. Hey guys, thank you for coming in. Welcome in. Just a quick reset for those of you who are seeing me for the first time via the replay. My name is Corey J, aka Coach K, and I'm your happiness coach. And I help people find happiness again or for the first time after experiencing toxic relationships. It's something that I've had to do. And so I definitely am aware of what it takes to get there. And when you can allow yourself to be in something for so long, you're not a happy person. When you can be uber sensitive to everything everybody got to say, it's because you're not happy. And I didn't want to realize that about myself. I didn't want to realize that I'm snapping at everybody else because somebody else is snapping on me. I'm not happy. And I'm looking for something that I can control because I'm not controlling what's going on in my own relationship. You know what I mean? I'm not the only person that's ever done that. You know what I mean? If you can relate to that, put a comment down below. Whether you're watching the replay or watching me live right now. We do crazy things when we're attached to crazy people. The other thing is that you start to feel like you are crazy because they're constantly telling you you're crazy. They're constantly making you check your own behavior. They're constantly telling you, especially if you're super uber duper religious and or super, people want to say they're spiritual now, but most of the time you're just still religious. And when they have you deep like that, everything is, you need to pray, you need to lay it on the altar, you need to fast, you need to pray, you need to fast, you need to pray, you need to fast. I mean, there's so much fasting and praying is going to do when it comes to abuse. Okay? Fasting and praying ain't going to fix that. Leaving will. Hi, Christopher. Thank you for tuning in. So I just wanted to go over those few things tonight, guys, just about the symptoms of narcissistic abuse. Because when you're in it, you think the whole world is against you and nobody's against you but you and the person who's with you. I'm going to say that one more time. No one else is against you but you and the person who's with you. And I say you're against yourself because you're allowing yourself to burn every single bridge that you have because you're isolated. They have you thinking that everybody else is against you and you believe them. So you talk to people. As if they are against you when they're not. So your mind switched to the unknown of what they are doing. Absolutely. Absolutely, Dion. I mean, it's unbelievable how you go from being one way to the extreme left of being a whole other person. You really do become like them in order to be with them. No, you don't see it. You won't see it until you're out of it. And that's how it was for me. I didn't see it until I was out of it. But now that I've been out of it for some years, I'm like, wow. And I see it now in other people who are in narcissistic relationships. And it saddens my heart because it's like, hey, I'm not against you. But you can't say anything to the person who's in it sometimes when they're not ready to acknowledge what it is that you have to say, when they're not ready to acknowledge that truth. Because as long as they're part of that toxic energy, they're going to continue to spew toxic energy. You don't realize how toxic you are until you're out of that toxic environment. You don't realize that when you're around toxic, when you're dating somebody who's toxic or you're with somebody who's toxic for a really long time, especially 5+ years, you really do pick up toxic behaviors. You really do, and it becomes a part of your survival mechanism. You think it's just about, oh, that's just who he is, that's just who I am. No, it's not. It's not who you are. It's who you had to become. It's what you got to do to live in that environment every single day. There's nothing normal about being in a toxic relationship. There's nothing normal about sitting in a marriage that is toxic and abusive, verbally even. It doesn't have to be physically abusive. Some people say, well, if he's not beating me, then it's okay. No, he's verbally attacking you, or she's verbally putting you down. Get out. Leave. It's not normal. It will kill you. It will absolutely kill you. And it might not kill you physically, guys, but it will kill you spiritually. It'll kill your joy. It'll kill your soul. It'll kill your passion. It'll kill your dreams. You won't want to do anything that you want to do. And especially if you have kids, right? You'll start to put all of your passion and drive into your children, because you can no longer do anything for yourself, because they make you feel like what you're doing for you is not helping the household. Oh, the house is a whole mess because now you're going to school, or you got a job, I need you to be at home, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? They make you feel like when you do something for yourself, you're doing a bad job. So then you pick up on your kids. You start putting the effort more towards your children, because then they won't say anything about that, because it's for the kids, and you feel justified in neglecting yourself because it's for the kids. There's no argument in this for the kids, right? That's still manipulation, because they've convinced you that, you know what, it's all about the kids now. Nope, it's all about you, because you're the most important person in your life. You come first, married or not, kids or not, you come first. And people might, you can put your comments down there if you don't like that statement. I really don't care, because at the end of the day, we're not taught to put ourselves first. We have to learn how to do that. You have to learn that you're the most important person in your life. When it comes to self-love and being truly happy, there's a difference between being truly happy and at peace. When you're truly happy and at peace, you're not quickly offended by the things that people say. You're not quickly offended by the things that people say. When you're truly happy, you're not. When you're truly happy, you pay attention to how you waste your words or what you say to other people. But when you're being in a toxic relationship, when you're in a toxic environment and you're dealing with that all the time anyway, in very subtle ways, you definitely put it out on other people, and you're not even conscious of it. You don't even realize it, because you've been in it for so long. And that's unfortunate, and it really saddens my heart when I hear it, and especially from people who don't really want to admit that that's what they're dealing with, and they're not ready to make that change, or they feel like they can't, or they feel like they're in the best thing since sliced bread. Hey, Miss Telmina, thank you for tuning in. It's really sad for me. It breaks my heart. And I'm sure I broke people's heart too. When I was in my situation and people were trying to tell me, or like, hey, you're overreacting. I mean, the smallest little thing, I'm just, well, who you talking to? Who you talking to? Wanting to fight with everybody else because somebody's always fighting with me. So fighting and being sensitive and being with the snapping really quick to be offended was all I knew. Because narcissists are quickly offended because they need to gaslight you. That's their way of mental manipulation. People who are in it, and I've been here, you don't want to admit it. You don't want to be real with yourself. You don't want to look in the mirror and say, this up. You don't want to sit down with yourself and say, you know what, I need to get a game plan. I need to get out. Or you don't want to sit down and say, I ain't happy. Something's got to change. And it's really unfortunate that we will allow ourselves to be unhappy long term than to get out and be alone, or to start over and be uncomfortable for a little while until we find our way again. It's not easy to find your way again. It's not, especially when you've been attached to somebody for a long time. You got to figure it out. I've been divorced for 21 years, but when I remember when I got divorced, I was still young. So for me, it was like, I got to figure out how to pay bills on my own. I had to figure out, it took me a while to get how to budget right, how to finance right, how to get everything together so that I'm not, losing apartments, It took a minute. Hey, Jay, thank you for tuning in. But at some point in time, we really have to come to a place where we are willing to sit down with ourselves and God and say, I am not happy. I don't even know what happy looks like. I know that was me, and if that's you, you know, it's okay. It's okay. It is okay. It's okay. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. There is nothing that you have to worry about. The fear is false. The fear is not real. I mean, what false evidence that appears real? Because fear will have you thinking that you can't tell anybody, that you can't talk about it. Fear will have you thinking and keeping yourself in that space that you're in, saying, it's okay, it's fine. He didn't mean it. She didn't mean it. No, they very well meant it. They very well meant it, because narcissists don't have empathy and sympathy. They can't empathize with you or sympathize with you. They choose not to. It's a choice. And so you're expecting to get water from a rock. It's not going to happen. You can adjust to it and learn how to live with it. But what kind of life is that? What kind of life is that? That's no real life at all. It's prison, because you're constantly moving around the other person. Some people might say, oh, that's just what a good wife does. No, ma'am. No, sir. No, that's not what a good wife does. A good wife. And some of y'all might be like, well, you're not married. How would you know? Listen, a good person, period, will stand up for themselves. A happy person will stand up for themselves, and in a way that is respectful, not allowing anybody to take advantage. People are who they are. You can't change people, and you can't even stop people from hurting your feelings. You can't stop people from being who they are, but you can control who you are, and you can control how you allow people to treat you. And you might think that you have it all under control. That's great. That's great that you might think that. But if you haven't lived your life because you're constantly doing things for another person, you don't have it all under control. If you're constantly starting something and stopping something and not finishing and not following through and all, you don't have it all under control. And you might not like me saying this, and some of you might find offense to it, and that's okay, because I was offended too when somebody said that to me. I was offended because they were right. I was offended because they were telling the truth. I was offended because I knew that I needed to get out of something that I thought I wanted to be in, or that I thought was real. And there was nothing real about it. There was nothing real about it. The realest thing that was going on about it is that it was fake. It might not make any sense, but that was the realization, the realest realization that I could have come to, was that there was nothing real about it. There was nothing real about what I was in. And a lot of times we don't admit that we're in something that is toxic because of the pain that we have to go through of realizing you wasted your time. Well, I don't want to leave now. I mean, I done put in 12 years. I don't want to leave now. I done put in 5 years. And I done gave all this and I gave all that. What am I going to leave with? Your dignity, your sanity. You might not even leave with your sanity, because they take that too. But you leave it what you got, even if you're a shell of a person. Doesn't matter. Leave it what you got. It's not a matter of starting over, it's a matter of starting wiser, as Coach D says all the time. Sometimes we just got to start wiser. And starting wiser means putting yourself first, realizing that you are the most important person in your life, and that you deserve the best. When you're in a marriage, you deserve to have a happy marriage. When you're in any kind of relationship, you deserve to have a happy relationship, period. But that starts with you. It starts with you. And it just takes courage to really admit that. It takes courage to admit that you're not happy. It takes courage to admit that you need help. It takes courage to admit that you need to talk to someone. It takes courage to admit that, you know what, maybe you made a mistake. I know I did. But let me tell you, the mistake that I made wasn't in getting with the person. It was in not listening to my own intuition that I needed to leave when things got bad. How many of you have ignored your own intuition? I'm here for it, okay? The mistake I made wasn't in getting with them. It was not listening to my own spirit. Saying, run, baby, run, get away now. You don't mean you're no good. Because those red flags pop up, right? They pop up. Our spirit, our intuition starts kicking in. Be like, something ain't right. Friends and family start calling in like, hey, baby, you okay? You were in my soul. You were in my spirit. I'm praying for you, and I just felt like I needed to call you because they know something's not right. That's God talking to us, right? My mistake was not listening. Because had I listened, I wouldn't have, my collarbone sticking out of my shoulder like this right here. I wouldn't be dealing with, constant reoccurring sinus infections because I have a broken nose. I wouldn't have this scar above my head. You know what I mean? There are so many different things that I wouldn't have to deal with now had I left then, had I listened then. My heart goes out, guys, to those who are listening to this or watching this this broadcast, and you're still in a toxic relationship. Find the courage to put yourself first. Find the courage to love yourself more than you love them. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with loving yourself more than you love anybody else, including your children. And now that might sound selfish to some of you who are taught that you got to put everybody else before yourself, but that is wrong teaching, in my opinion. I'm sorry. It's wrong teaching. We're not supposed to put the world before ourselves. We're not supposed to put our children before them. We're not even supposed to put our husbands or wives before ourselves. Because if we're not whole, we can't run a household. If we're not together, how is the rest of the house supposed to be together? We can fake it. But then when you go to bed at night and when you're all by yourself, you still have to deal with the reality of you're not happy. And let me tell you, true happiness, guys, is priceless. It is priceless, okay? You can't put a price on true happiness. You can't put a price on self-love. You can't put a price on peace of mind. You can't. And when you're with a toxic person, you will think you got peace of mind, but you really don't. It's a false reality that you're living in, sweetie. Because there's nothing peaceful about being with anybody toxic. Nothing. You've created that bubble around yourself to make yourself think you got peace of mind. But you don't. And a hit dog will holler. So if you're offended by that, check your situation. I was there. I had to do it. Because the reality was what it was. I said what I said, right? The reality was what it was, And there was nothing else I could do about it but face that reality after a while. And there does come a time where you will have to come to the end of yourself and realize you can't go any further. Whether it's 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, and I hope that it doesn't get to 20 years because then your whole life has gone by. And then you really got to start over. You got to really start wiser. Start from scratch, square one. Because you've committed 20 years to somebody that really can pour into you. You gave from an empty saucer, an empty cup for 20 years, 10 years, 5 years. You're empty on the inside. You have nothing left to give. And that's not where you really want to be at all whatsoever. At all. When you are truly happy, your cup overflows and you are giving from your saucer. You know when to be quiet. You know when to speak. You know when to give to yourself. Listen, I don't go live if my cup isn't half full, if I'm not full. And I will take time to fill my cup and then I'll go live. Then I'll get really, get back on my podcasts and stuff like that. It's not a matter of inconsistency for me. It's me knowing when. If my cup's not overflowing, there's nothing for me to give you at this time. But when my cup is overflowing, y'all see my face. And that's where you really want to be. That's true happiness. That's true self-love. Knowing when to take a back seat to everything else. Because you're the most important person in your life. God will sustain what he gives you. He'll give you provision for the vision. So you don't have to always keep going. It's okay to stop for a second and say, hey, let me hit the reset button, reboot, reset. Let me do this again a whole other way. Or let me take a break because I need to fill my own cup. You can't do that when you're in a toxic relationship because you're constantly having to pour out. You're constantly left empty. That's where the fatigue comes in. That's where the depression comes in. That's where the insomnia comes in. That's where the nausea comes in and the upset stomach and the ulcers. That's where all that illness comes in. The migraines that are just awful. The overeating, the binge eating, or the lack of appetite. When I left that person, I gained 15 pounds. 15 pounds. My appetite came back because I didn't have to stress anymore. You have no appetite because you're stressed, or you're binge eating because you're stressed, because of the lack of self-esteem, because of the lack of confidence, you know? Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in with me tonight. I just wanted to share that information with you all. I pray that it blesses somebody because, listen, when I needed to hear it, it blessed me and it helped to change my entire life. If you or somebody you know is in something that is toxic or not healthy for them, please share this information out, guys. If it's not you, share it with somebody who you know could benefit from this from this information. And if somebody that you know is going through this, or you yourself need to get a little coaching and need a little help to get through your situation, I am your coach, okay? DM me. Let's set up a power session. Let's set up a power call so that we can get you on your journey to happiness, because that's what I'm here for. There is nothing like waking up happy every morning, every day. No matter what goes on, you're feeling grateful simply because you are really happy and have peace of mind. There is nothing like it, guys. And I want to be able to help you get there. Please, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to hit me up at all. That's the first step to recovery, is what? Admitting that you need help. You're welcome, Valerie. I appreciate you for tuning in. Don't forget to follow me over on Instagram at KJ_I am Coach K, the Heart and Soul Podcast, on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor. Follow me over there. And my YouTube channel, guys, is back up and running now. You can find me at Corey J. I'll put the links are in my profile bio. So take a look there and follow me over on these other pages, because I will be giving even more details on those other platforms coming up this month. I also have some other amazing things coming up right before Thanksgiving, guys. I'm excited to share with you that I will be revealing next week. So please stay tuned. And again, guys, don't hesitate to DM me if you or somebody you know is really in need of my coaching program. It is an intense 12 weeks, but I promise you, you will be better afterwards, and you will be closer to your journey. You'll be closer to where you want to be. That's all. You won't be where you are. You'll graduate from there to a whole other place, and you'll be a totally different person after you finish. That I can guarantee. You show up, I guarantee results. You hear me? You show up, I guarantee results. So as I always say, guys, happiness is an inside job. So be your own kind of magic, because happiness comes from the magic within. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Till next time, I'm Coach K, and I'm out.